Hey, it's Chuck.
I don't think he's going to throw the ball as much as he thinks he's going to throw the ball now that Chip Kelly's on board. And I'm happy about that. More quarterback.
The truth is, Ryan Day has made a change philosophically, but it's none of those.
You all know who wins. LSU is the drunkest fan base in the country.
And good morning. Welcome, everybody, into Chuck on Bucks College Football Show on a Wednesday. So happy to have you here with me. Good morning to everybody in the chat. Emily, Matt, Raph, good to see you all. Shout out to my man Kyle, having a rough morning at work. Iowa week, guys. We are right in the thick of it. Wednesday, I love it. Starting to get ramped up, saying goodbye to week 5 and kind of doing some work on week 6. Checking out some stuff about Iowa the last couple of nights. And we got a contest here, and we're going to talk about it. Mika, if you're here today, we've got our question coming for the Juck on Bucks giveaway. Another Juck on Bucks Juck Eye shirt coming out today. We're going to have a question at some point in the show. Whoever answers the question correctly first is going to get that shirt sent to them, courtesy of our show sponsor, Columbus Apparel Co., where you can find a line of Columbus stuff, Ohio stuff, Juck on Bucks stuff, and a ton of screen printing. They're the best in the business. I absolutely love them. So anyway, let's get to the show. Yesterday, we got to hear from Ryan Day, Jim Knowles, and Chip Kelly. Buckeyes got a tough test in Iowa this week. The line originally opened up at Ohio State minus 23.5. It felt to me like that was a little steep. That's the same line as Michigan State. It was quickly bet down to 20.5, so still roughly 3 touchdowns. But this is a really tough team. My expectations coming to this aren't that the Buckeyes are going to blow these guys out. I can see it happening, but those aren't my expectations. If it does happen, I'll be thrilled. But if they win by 14, this is the type of team that always just plays us wonky. And, they can jump up and really take you down. If you're a good team, they can make it close. They can make it ugly. They can muddy it up. So, I anticipate in the post-game show, we're going to be really happy. But if it's a close game, I think a lot of people will be really salty. I'm not going to be. I'm just going to say that right off the rip. These guys just have a way of making things ugly. And, this Iowa team is pretty good. A little bit different than we've seen in the past couple of years anyway. So they beat Troy. They beat Minnesota. They beat Illinois State, and they lost to Iowa State by 1 point. I watched that game. They were in control of that game. Iowa State, remember, they're now a pretty highly ranked team. I think the highest ranked team in the Big 12 right now. So not a bad loss. We know them for Phil Parker's defense, which is always awesome. He's been there forever. And this version of that defense ranked 15th in the nation in points, 18th in yards allowed. I take all these national ranking numbers at this point in the season with a huge grain of salt, though, because many teams have only played 2 P5 opponents. Ohio State's only played 1. So those numbers are a little skewed at this point. But they're really good at defending the run, allowing just 62 yards rushing a game, 210 yards passing. They've got 2 very good bigs inside in the middle of that defensive line. An excellent linebacker in Jay Higgins. He's an All-American coming back. And this is going to be a really big test, particularly for Tegra and Austin Searveld at right guard, because the guys in the middle there's some tough dudes. Really the entire offensive line when it comes to run blocking in this game. This will be a big step up in competition, I think, for Michigan State. Iowa not been able to generate much pressure on the quarterback without a blitz. And if they do decide to blitz, I think Big Willie's going to piece them up. They've really got not much match for our wide receivers. On the offensive side of the ball for these guys, they got Cade McNamara, former Michigan quarterback, at the helm. He gets made fun of a lot. He's not so hot, but he's not terrible. 64 of 102 on the year, 588 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks. Not a lot of talent at wide receiver for these guys. We can expect an absolute ton of junior running back Kaleb Johnson, who is a total stud, and a good offensive line blocking for him. Kaleb Johnson, 6 foot 225, 685 yards so far, 8.4 yards a carry, 9 touchdowns, but the most impressive stat to me by far, 5.57 yards after contact. That's 3rd in the nation. He's an absolute load. for perspective, like we all think Quinshawn is great after contact, right? Quinshawn's average 3.49 after contact. So, 2 full yards more than Quinshawn after contact. The dude's a stud. And the Buckeyes have not exactly found their groove yet when it comes to tackling. Sometimes it takes a while to warm up to that. You're not doing it much in practice before season. And Jim Knowles talked about tackling against Iowa.
What we need to see better is tackling. Our linebackers need to continue to become better tacklers, and particularly this week, knockback tacklers, right? I mean, these guys are the kings in this running back, turning a 2-yard gain into a 4 or 5 yard gain, which then leads to 2nd and 5, which leads to 3rd and 2, So we need to continue to work on our tackling and, with an attitude of knocking people back.
That's spot on. These guys are the kings of this, and this guy presents one heck of a test, and it's really going to show us where these linebackers are at. It's something we've all talked about a lot the last couple of weeks. The good news is if we need to bring up the safeties in run support, I don't think Cade McNamara can make you pay much in the passing game. So you get to test yourself without too much danger because you can bring those guys up. Now, Kaleb Johnson had some things to say this week. Kaleb Johnson, an Ohio native from Hamilton down in the Cincinnati area, he spoke to the Iowa media about his Ohio ties and about Ohio State.
Let me think. Tegra, Tisha Bowley, he played line. Jeremy Matthews, cornerback. Sonny Styles, linebacker. CJ Hicks, linebacker. So.
Did you go to Ohio State games growing up? Have you ever been in that stadium?
I just been over there on the visit.
Okay.
Yes, sir. So.
Kaleb, I know they didn't offer you out of high school, and now you're one of the best running backs in the country. But do you feel like you're entering this game with a chip on your shoulder?
I mean, not really, because I really don't care about the offers and stuff like that. But I'm entering with a chip on my shoulder no matter what, because it's O State and I want to beat them. So I feel like even if they offer me, I wouldn't have went, because I feel like I want to beat them. So it's not like a team thing. I want to be with them. I want to beat them. So that's my goal.
There you have it. The Ohio native said he would not have gone to Ohio State, even if they had offered. I took a look at his offer list: Michigan State, Kentucky, Pitt, Cal, and of course, Iowa. So some decent names, but he could be one of those people from Cincinnati who just do not like the Buckeyes. And we know there are a lot of them. It's a pretty split city when it comes to recruiting. I've never understood why, but when I started this show, I said that quite a few times. And there were some people who educated me on the Cincinnati Columbus issues that start from years ago, actually from basketball, from the Buckeyes and the Bearcats playing basketball. But he's ready for this game, and he knows some guys on the team. It's going to be a fun one. Tony Alford did not recruit him. Tony Alford took Dallin Hayden that class, and that was the class of 2022, which I actually want to take a look at with you guys later on, because it's not looking so hot, man. It's not looking so hot. We're going to go through those guys. A whole lot of them no longer on the team from that class of 2022. Iowa, with their new offensive coordinator, Tim Lester, a guy who Jim Knowles actually coached at one point in his career, is the guy who replaced Brian Ferentz. Brian Ferentz, the son of head coach Kirk Ferentz. Kirk Ferentz, who I used to love. A guy who, he was just the model of doing the most with the least. He recruited guys who just loved football and molded them into good, if not great, football players, and I had a ton of respect for that. He was also, when I was young, with the Browns, with Nick Saban and Bill Belichick and that crew. And I just used to really like him and really admire what they had going on in Iowa, until I turned on him during the entire thing with keeping Brian Ferentz around as long as he did. I thought he defended him way too much because they were winning games. That was his excuse. Like, we're winning games. It was so embarrassing. The defense was amazing, and they were winning games, yes. And the offense was just the laughingstock of the country. It was really an embarrassment for the entire Big Ten that a team could win 10 games fielding that kind of offense. And everybody took shots at the entire Big Ten. And I've said before, like, I'm not a fan of the Big Ten. We've carried the Big Ten all of my life, and they've been responsible for giving us crappy strength of schedule in return for so many years. I think we're finally starting to see some of them step their game up, and that's great because they owe us a lot on the national stage. But when I really turned on Kirk Ferentz was the Doug Lesmerises incident. If you don't remember, the Buckeyes were playing Iowa, and former Ohio State beat writer Doug Lesmerises, one of the best in the profession, I followed him his entire career, decided instead of going to the Ohio State press conference to go into the Iowa press conference because he was so bothered that Iowa was continuing to employ Brian Ferentz, the worst coordinator in the country. And he has an issue with the perceived nepotism that was going on there. And that's not something that's new to Doug. It's something he's always hated. So the game ends. He goes into the Iowa press conference, and this is what transpired.
Why are you willing to change a player's position to put in a new quarterback in the middle of the year, but you would not be willing to evaluate an assistant coach and make a decision in the middle of the year?
I think you're talking about two separate job descriptions and two separate areas of responsibility. I know people do it. I know it's been done. It's been done this year. Again, it's just not my preference. My preference has been to play it out. And there's evidence to show that, it's worked pretty well in the past. So we'll play it out, and then we'll do our assessments and our evaluations when everything's over. And the season's not over. So when the season's over, we'll make an evaluation. I think it's best for our program.
You have one of the least productive offenses in the country.
I've noticed that, yeah.
Everybody's noticed it.
Well,
Do you
thank you.
believe that you're putting the Iowa football program in a bad spot by having that kind of production on one side of the ball and it's run by one of your family members?
It's got no bearing on who the person is, all right? It's just a matter of who is coaching our football team. Okay, the guys on our staff are guys I think that have demonstrated success. They're good people, and we're going to keep pushing forward. No, I don't feel like we're doing anything wrong.
When you get to the end of the year and you do make that evaluation, will evaluating Brian be any different than evaluating any other assistant coach?
I've tried to treat everybody with consistency on our staff. Past.
Can you believe this guy? The stones on Doug, man. I just love that dude. Yes, E, I am live. We are definitely live. So Doug goes in there, and was he a little out of line? Maybe. It was a little uncomfortable, but Doug's got the stones to do it. He was a bit of a jerk, I think, when he said everyone has, when he talked about the offense. That was maybe a little uncalled for, but that was on Saturday. People talked about it from Saturday to Tuesday, when the conversation changed tone, when Kirk Ferentz said this at his press conference.
As on Sunday, just, because during the questioning, and in some cases interrogation on Saturday that I experienced, and the one good thing about that, it dawned on me coming home, I said, man, as bad as today was, it could have been worse, because I could have been that guy. I could have been that guy, like had his job and had to act like he did. So, yeah, it could be a hell of a lot worse, right? Things aren't all bad.
This is not pre-recorded. This is live. Anyway, the stones of this guy, man, Doug's the best, but this dude, Ferentz, goes out and calls out Doug. When you're a really wealthy guy and you are belittling someone for their profession in front of the people who do the same profession, I don't know, man. Not a good look. Also, Iowa, I can't stand because they have the worst uniforms in all of college football, which were sent to them by Chuck Knoll of the Steelers when former Iowa coach Hayden Fry wrote him a letter asking if they could adopt the Steelers uniform because his crappy team wanted to look tough. And the Hawkeyes have worn the Steelers uniforms ever since. That's right. Not a mock. The actual Steelers uniforms is how they started off with those things, which is totally pathetic. Can Iowa beat the Buckeyes? Can they stop this offense? Can they score enough to keep pace? It would take a whole lot of turnovers and a lot of funky stuff, in my opinion, to make that a reality. But Ryan Day took the podium yesterday to talk about it. He opened by saying, it's sure nice to remind fans of this.
And as we get headed into Big Ten season, I just want to remind all our fans that we do have the best fans in the land, and we are the standard for excellence, and we always handle ourselves in first class, and so excited to see everybody out here on Saturday. And secondly, just want to congratulate Chris.
What's RD talking about? Why is he bringing that up? The fourth home game of the season. We've already played home games. Why is he now reminding our fans that? It's got nothing to do with the Big Ten. If you didn't notice or hear, when Will Howard went down on the big hit against Michigan State and had to come out of the game, there were some fans, not all, at Michigan State who were chanting what we believed at the time to be F Ohio, and cheering about Howard being down. Obviously, a classless thing to do. It has since been clarified to me from one of the Michigan State fans when I tweeted that yesterday that they were actually tweeting F Will Howard, not F Ohio. Get it straight. All right, now it's straight. Anyway, I think that was a call out by RD, and I love it. I absolutely love it. And somebody said already in the chat, this dude's always crying. I don't see it as crying, calling out people for classless monkey-like behavior. I like my coach that does that, so I'm good with it. Anyway, as someone who likes to troll myself, I always keep it classy. I don't cheer for people that are injured. I shake hands when I'm done. I don't make it personal. That's a pretty classless thing to do. So they deserve what they get. A lot of them were really upset about that yesterday. Really upset, and I loved it. But let's get to the game. Ryan Day said that this is a huge challenge. Obviously, Iowa's very physical, and everybody knows who they are. They haven't changed in a long time. Good coaches, physical players, veteran team. A couple interesting points from his time up there. He said, he was asked about right guard, right? So these guys have pretty much split snaps. He started off with Austin Cerebell, 2 starts at left guard, and games 3 and 4, they have split snaps at right guard. And Ryan was asked if one has emerged, and he said, I don't think we're there yet. They said they both graded out similarly. When that happens, we feel like if we can pass out the reps, it makes them both better and stronger. We'll see how this week of preparation goes and then decide as we get closer to the game. I find this to be a different tone than last week. Last week, he was asked, if both continue to play well, are you going to keep playing them both like this? And he said, yes, they would continue to split reps if they're both playing well. But answering the question like he did yesterday, when asked, has one emerged yet, with, I don't think we're there yet, instead of, I just told you guys, we're going to continue to split reps as long as they're both playing good, makes me feel like something's changed in the battle there. And I wouldn't be surprised if the thing that's changed is Austin Cerebell is close to winning this job on a more full-time basis. If he improves again this week, like he has each week that he's played, I think it's probably the right choice. I love Tegra. But this story with Cerebell, I mean, he's come out of nowhere. It's really pretty amazing. And he would be winning that job based on his excellent performance, not because Tegra's playing bad, because he's not. He's been pretty damn solid. For a guy with his first 4 starts under his belt, if Cerebell wasn't in the picture, I'd be really happy with Tegra. But the fact is, Cerebell is probably playing a little better in the way these guys are playing offense, getting these dudes out a whole lot on the move. Cerebell's just looked fantastic at it. And I think that this is a great sign for our development of the offensive line, for the depth that we're creating, to have both the two of them ready to play, as well as Carson Hinsman should need be. The interior depth looks really good. Tackle, not so much, but, you know, I mean, even our starting tackles, when we look at, we got one amazing one and one who's probably playing not so hot compared to the rest of the guys on the line. So depth, you know, forget about it. If we lose a tackle, we got a big problem, but the interior looks pretty damn good. So Day went on to say they continued, or they never beat themselves. And to me, they've always felt like Iowa teams with the older guys. It seems like they always got 4th and 5th year seniors, kind of like Michigan last year with so many older guys, which is really kind of how this Buckeye team is. A ton of older guys. On Julian Saint's interception, he threw, was it 4th and 1? He throws way down the field, and he throws not a pick, incompletion. He throws the incompletion way down the field. A lot of people were mad that he took that shot, trying to rub it in or whatever. In fact, I heard a lot of that back from the Michigan State folks yesterday. Like, that's a totally classless move. That's a freshman, and Ryan Day was very irritated by it. You could tell on the sidelines. But he said if he's going to throw it, he better complete it. And then he went on to talk about, you know, those are reps that you can't replicate. We're happy that he was out there being able to take those reps. And I don't know if you guys noticed, but that first like 10-yard hitch that Julian threw out to the sideline, I think I rewound that thing like 3 times. It was the pass just looks different coming out of his hand. It's really, really fun to watch. The decision-making is clearly not there yet. We've heard that coming out of practice. He's still throwing a lot of picks. He's struggling in some of the RPO decision making, which I don't think is ever going to be his strong suit. If he wins the starting job, that's, the offense will be looking a little bit different, I think. But we didn't talk about Devin Brown here on the show. I've heard a lot of people talk about him coming in off the bench, avoiding the rush and throwing that touchdown to JJ. Would Julian have done the same? Could he have orchestrated that right now? And I think when you're looking at, who should be the number 2 quarterback, that's kind of how we got to look at it. Like, who can do that right now? Yes, I would have loved to see Julian get some more reps, but could Julian have come in off the bench cold and done that in that one instance? I don't know that he could have. I don't think any of us do. I think a lot of people would say that that was a bad pass anyway from Devin. I've heard a lot of people say that. I don't think it was. The safety was bearing down. He obviously knows who he's throwing to, that's JJ. I think he put it about the only spot that JJ could have got it and nobody else could have. Maybe it had a little more heat on it than it needed to. Maybe it could have been a foot lower, but it was a completion. It was awesome. I think it might have been the biggest moment of Devin's career. And I was really happy for him, man. Really happy that he got to do that because, I'm not a big believer in Devin Brown as a quarterback. I am a big fan of him as a Buckeye. And for me, when we talk about these quarterbacks, so many people get in the camp of one guy over the other. I can't stand that attitude. I think these are all our dudes, and I'm rooting for them all, whether you agree with the coach's decision on who to play or not. I just don't get it. But happy for that dude. I think it was awesome. Day was also asked how the decisions are made when they decide to use a guy like Emeka as a blocker pulling on a trap play. And he said they weigh the pluses and minuses, but Emeka was so fired up over that. That's winning football. And there's been a big conversation between Buckeye fans like us about the wide receiver blocking. And it kind of highlights just how good it's been this year and just how non-existent it's been for the last few years, but also how in tune and how dialed in this little segment of our fan base is, because this is stuff you don't hear in other fan bases. I'm talking about wide receiver blocking. Anyway, Dane Bugler, who we talked about yesterday, he is an NFL draft analyst. And geez, I forget who he's working for now, maybe The Athletic. But he tweeted out this comp of Emeka in his blocking and said that the NFL is definitely going to notice this. Ryan Day also talked about a couple of these at the press conference. The one in particular where JJ scores. That one was sweet. This one right here is the one Day talked about. Oh, no, never mind. This is the one where he cracks the linebacker. That's a 233-pound linebacker, by the way. Just fantastic. Here we go. This is the JJ score. He said Emeka was so fired up about this one, and that's absolutely playing winning football, which just love to see it, man. It's the coolest thing. I think that guy is just tremendously underrated. And I said the other day, like, for a guy who's about to shatter a bunch of Ohio State records, he's just done it so quietly throughout his career. And an amazing player. He was predicted by CBS with, 4 other guys to be a first-round pick. And I think he's right on that borderline. But stuff like that is what's absolutely going to show his value. He's such a hard worker, such a great leader, and he's absolutely going to do whatever it takes. He lacks a little bit of explosiveness that you would normally see from a first-round wide receiver. But the dude just gets it done over and over. Anyway, Day continued to say about some of the long drives that the defense gave up, that they were 10-3 in explosive plays last week, and they won the turnover battle 3-1. Doing that, you're going to win a lot of games. So there's some back and forth of wanting to force those 3 and outs, and also wanting to get stops and keep them out of the end zone. You gave up 7 points. They're weighing the balance right now of how to go about that. He was asked about PFF, which I thought was an interesting line of questioning. So he was asked if PFF, if he's bothered that is kind of the forward-facing kind of metric that the public is using to grade how good college football players are. And we've talked a lot about PFF here on the show. And Day basically said what I think most of us agree upon is a lot of them, it comes down to, do they know the responsibility of the player? And on some positions, it's much easier to know the responsibility of the player on that play than others. Offensive line, a lot of times, is a tough one. But he said for the most part, he feels that it is, pretty spot on, but obviously the position coach's grade is going to be better, but generally a pretty good tool, which is kind of how I feel about it. It's a tool. It's not a statistic, but it's something, we can look at and use it with everything else that we're using when we're kind of judging how somebody's playing. People were curious as to why Emeka was back returning kickoffs. Was that something that was a change? Not a permanent change. That was just a game time decision against Michigan State because Ryan Day said that he thought that they might try some onside kicks, and Brandon Innes is really good up front on the hands team. So they put Emeka back and put Brandon Innes up front to make sure they couldn't sneak and grab us on an onside kick. And speaking of onside kicks, we've got a rule change in the Big Ten. Not a rule change. What would you say? Gosh, I don't know how I'd word it. The referees are changing where they stand. Let's put it that way. So last week, obviously, we had the Michigan-Minnesota game. And in the Michigan-Minnesota game, Minnesota kicked the onside kick. The onside kick was called offsides. And here is where you had the referees positioned. You can see one up top at the M where the yellow line is, then one at the 40, then one over here at the 35. And the Big Ten has immediately changed how these guys are going to be standing. The two line judges on the 40 and the 35, the one is going to go to the other side of the field. So they're both going to be looking down that same line together to make sure that they don't screw this up again. So this is exactly how it's worded. Effective immediately, the Big Ten has been approved by the NCAA to implement a modified officiating mechanic that will allow the conference to change the manner in which it officiates onside kicks by positioning the line judge and headline judge on the kicking team's restraining line, thereby putting multiple officials in the best position to consistently make the correct judgment. I feel like we've seen a couple of rules in the last, 16 months change that has something to do with Michigan. Doesn't it feel like that? Day was asked about going for it on fourth down. The long pass to Emeka that Will made closer. The Bucks were closer to midfield, and the other one was we were on the 3-yard line. He kind of walked through the decision process on those. He said the midfield one, it was kind of in that in-between area, which I'm always an advocate for going for it when you're right there. He said a lot of it matters if you have a good play. Do you got a good play in that situation? You trust your gut. You go with how your team's playing. You trust your team, and it depends on the scenario. I am always an advocate for going for it on fourth, but I got to make sure that I don't then get mad when you don't make it because I don't want to be a hypocrite. So I generally try to keep the stance of I want coaches to play aggressive in most situations, unless your defense is getting torched and you don't want to put them in a bad situation. He asked if other teams were scheming against JJ. And he said, I think that's the tricky part is how much can you because of all the other things that are going on. And that's the idea, putting stress on the defense. But people know where number 4 is when he's on the field. And this is kind of what I was stressing and hoping that I wanted to see every single game this year from the very beginning was I want them to start fast with targets to JJ because we know what's going to come out. Some crazy catches, and this dude's going to get all this national spotlight, and all of a sudden everybody's going to have to plan, like, what are we going to do to stop this guy? And it's going to drive them crazy because they know the other weapons. So they have done that, and I'm so happy they did. They showcased it. JJ now against Michigan State showed what we've seen all spring, all preseason, these wild catches, this crazy skill set. And now they're on notice. What are you going to do? How do you take him out of the game and also guard Carnell, guard Mech? Like, what do you do? It's a dilemma. It's quite the dilemma. By the way, we did the question not too long ago about Marvin as a senior or JJ as a freshman. And that got 55% of the folks voted that they would rather have JJ as a freshman over Marv as a senior. And there was a decent percentage of people that were really irritated by the fact that that question was even being asked. Marvin Harrison last year at this point, remember he won the Biletnikoff, 17 receptions for 336 yards and 3 touchdowns. JJ, 19 receptions for 364 and 5 touchdowns. A little bit different there, as Marv at this point had played Notre Dame as well. So, a little bit of a knock there. But the point is, they're neck and neck through this point in the season. There was a guy there at the press conference that asked Chip and Ryan, and I'm curious what you guys are thinking. He thinks that Will Howard is really, really locking in on wide receivers. Ryan Day didn't feel that way. I don't think I feel that way. I've seen some of it, but not a lot that I would say, I feel this was a big problem for McCord. And I mean, in fairness to McCord, he didn't have a rushing attack like Will does. So maybe it exasperated that a little bit more. But I don't feel like I've seen a ton of Will locking on receivers. And I don't feel like I've seen a lot of you complaining about that or feeling that's a big issue with Will. But this guy asked both Chip and Ryan, and he made it sound like this was a big thing coming from the fan base to me, is what I gathered from him. It's not something I've heard a lot. I don't know. I don't know what you guys are thinking on that. Day continued to go on and praise Travion for his blocking, which has been spectacular. I was listening to CBS Sports College Football Podcast, and Tom Fornelli on CBS was saying about Trey that he thinks he is the best Ohio State pass blocker since Ezekiel Elliott, which is just crazy because literally last year, Trey was not good at this. And now all of a sudden he's getting compared to Zeke for his pass blocking, which I absolutely love to see. And I did not think it was possible. I thought that Trey had pretty much done everything he could, put everything on tape for the NFL, and really couldn't raise his draft stock. But he has, right? When you've added this dimension into your game, you've definitely raised your draft stock for sure. And I just really didn't see this coming at all. So really awesome to see. Jim Knowles had a lot to say, and we'll get to that in a sec. I want to hit on a couple of things that you guys got to say. My man, Troy, I loved how Day said blocking like that. It was contagious. It seems like all the wide receivers have stepped up their blocking game this year. And that's just it, right? When you embrace it as a room and you make it something that's cool, something that's rewarded, something that's celebrated in the team, which it just hasn't been recently, and that's clear. This year, it is. It's a thing, and they want to do it, and they want to be the guy on that film that gets shown doing it, and I love it. I think it's fantastic. Fisherman is with me here. He thinks that Iowa's a good team. I'm definitely with that. There is no amount of points that we win by that I'm going to be disappointed. I want to win and move on to Oregon because that's what's up next, Sage says, I like that both college and the NFL are going for it more on fourth. And a lot of people rag on analytics and following the chart. And I am also thankful that they're going for it more on fourth. So whatever it was that made that happen, and we know a lot of it is the numbers, it's a good thing, right? Because it makes the game so much more exciting to me. Totally agree with that one, buddy. Chris doesn't think Chip or Day have shown much of the playbook. I also agree with that, but I'm also someone who thinks so much of this is about execution. I feel like, and not you, Chris, but there's a lot of people who are kind of novice fans who think that, they haven't shown much of the playbook. There's a bunch of secret plays that are just going to win every game you play. And it's just so much about execution, but they've definitely been extremely vanilla. Chris also adds, Thurman needs to be a red zone threat. Could not believe that Jelani Thurman had 11 snaps against Michigan State to G. Scott's 32. Now, G was a good receiver in that game, no doubt about it. But if you're going to focus on throwing the ball to the tight ends, you're not playing Thurman. I'm kind of scratching my head and thinking Thurman must have had a bad week of practice, something, you know what I mean? It just doesn't make any sense at all. Sean says Thurman needs to step it up. And I kind of feel like I'm with Sean that maybe something went down in practice. Or he just wasn't, we've talked about his effort. Day's talked about his focus, and maybe it wasn't all there this past week, which seems to me like that would be the only reason that he wouldn't have gotten more playing time or as much as the rest of the guys, because he had been getting as much playing time as them. And the previous game, he was pretty good, better than most of them, in my opinion. Dave says Will did have 2 throws that were bad. No doubt about it. Oh my gosh. Raphael brings up the hit on Trey. And that was an awkward way, wasn't it? So he fumbled on the play, but it was ruled not a fumble because his wrist was down. But the way he was just kind of wedged between his cleats were stuck into the grass, and the way the defender was, he was just kind of, both of his legs were totally straight and he was bending forward. That was an awkward spot to be in, and he just couldn't move. He was stuck there. So, all right, let's get to Jim Knowles. Knowles was a guy who, again, was requested by the media to come in and talk. And a lot have been wondering, with the overall play of the linebackers not being maybe as good as the other groups on the defense so far, if it makes sense to automatically switch when the offense goes to 12 personnel to the 3 linebacker set, which takes Jordan Hancock off the field. The good news is that the last couple of games, that's also meaning that Arvell Reese gets on the field with Sonny and with Cody. So that's a good thing. But the bad thing is, you don't like to always, I like a little more nuance to it. You know what I mean? Like, let's say against Iowa, in their attack, I definitely want those heavier bodies in there. But every time, I don't know that it's always the case where you should always just automatically switch to it. But here's what he had to say about it.
You guys decide to play 3 linebackers. Is it automatic there in 12 personnel, we're playing 3 linebackers? Is there more nuance to it? And then what are the conversations like when you decide to pull a guy like Jordan Hancock off the field? Because he just seems like he's one of your better players and really integral to what you guys do. So I'd imagine it's not easy to always pull him off the field as effective.
No, yeah, it's not easy, but you're right. It really is personnel based, and trying to get the people in there who, particularly in the run game. And it's not that Jordan can't handle it, because he can. He does a really good job in the run game, and I've spent times in my career where we stayed in nickel in 12, because those were our dudes. But we got other guys, so we're just trying to get the best.
Jordan can definitely handle it. There's no doubt about that. He also said this, which was just fantastic to hear about Kaleb Downs.
Sometimes on those big, deep, like you take a guy like Kaleb Downs, who, we activated Saturday, and we're going to continue to activate him as we get into big time Big Ten competition. You see what he looks like when he's activated. What you don't see a lot is when he's not activated, how many times they just don't throw the ball deep. You know what I mean? Because he's in the right place and on top of the routes, and they don't even take those shots. Those shots aren't taken. So it's the same thing with the corners. It's like,
Kaleb has been activated. I love the way he worded that. It makes me feel like we've got a lot more games like we saw against Michigan State coming. And I think we're probably going to see kind of a similar Kaleb this weekend against Iowa. So that's really awesome. Also discussed the Lathan punch. And he said it's definitely something that they've worked on since spring. Not just that, but Hancock strip. And you work on it all spring and then all preseason for those 2 plays. And we're going to see more of it. He said some guys are better than others, but Lathan is lethal at it. So that's pretty awesome. Another criticism this week has been playing some really shallow off man coverage. They've been playing a lot of it, giving up a really big cushion. And a lot of people really irritated about that, particularly the touchdown Michigan State had, IGB playing way off. With corners like you have, you would think that they would mix in a little more press And he said it's a constant thought and a constant adjustment. We've been solid on explosive plays, so you can't forget that because that wins games. But to answer your question, yes, we need to have more balance. So he is intending on playing a little more press, which is good. About Kaleb, Iowa's running back, he said he's a fantastic back, downhill, breaks tackles, makes it hard for the defense to maintain position. This guy is the king, man. He is the king at carrying tacklers with him. And this is something that we've noticed so far with a couple of the guys in the middle of the defense, that they've not been stopping guys in their tracks. And I really hope that that's something that we see. This is something that I thought was going to be a strength of someone like Sonny in particular, because I feel like ever since I first saw him, like, I think it was a game against Rutgers last year, man, he hit Kyle Monangai and he just stopped him dead in his tracks. And I thought that this was going to be something that was going to be a real strength. I don't think it has been so far this year. Not yet. Doesn't mean it can't be. I mean, the dude's obviously built like a rock. He's heavy. Definitely hoping to see that. He was told that there was a metric by one of these analysts that said that Ohio State is leading the country in pressures without blitzing. Is he satisfied? Absolutely not. He's definitely not satisfied. He's never satisfied. But he does think that they're doing their job and getting to the quarterback. And what he needs to do is tighten up the coverage to get those guys the extra second to get back there. And I think that's awesome. Dylan Davis asked about Sonny's progression. Our buddy Dylan, here's what he had to say about Sonny in particular.
He's settling in at linebacker the way you thought he would, or at the rate you thought he would?
Yeah, I mean, very pleased with Sonny. You know, I think he's being put into a lot of different situations. Playing Sam, playing Will, he's played Mike. All of those positions have their nuances to them, you know. And I know this, that sometimes when you see him or any of our players not, you know, being off on a play or looking like they're out of position, I mean, that to me goes back to me and training and coaching, right? I mean, there are so many details to these things that anytime a play goes wrong, and our players know this, I tell them, you know, all your bad plays are on me, all your good plays are on you. So when I look at a play, you know, I say, okay, he should have done this. But then I have to look at myself and you have to say, how many times was he in practice put into that position versus that play? I mean, that's how, you know, that's how you have to be accountable, I believe, as a coach, because we have really good players and really good kids, and Sonny is one of them. Meaning, you know, like they're good and they listen.
I love listening to this guy. I absolutely love listening to him, and I love the way he explains things. I love the way he always takes responsibility. I mean, that's a true player's coach, and he's awesome. There's also no doubt, and Ryan Day said about Sonny as well, something similar. They've definitely heard this week the criticisms of Sonny, and they want to make sure that he knows that they have his back, that he has their support. And that's great to hear, because Sonny, no doubt, will get better. That's not what's at issue for me. What's at issue for me is Arvell. That's what's at issue for me. Sonny, I still believe, will get this. Knowles was also asked about one of his previous really good players at Oklahoma State who transitioned from safety to linebacker. How long did it take him to get it? And Knowles said it was year 3. Obviously, we don't have that time for Sonny, so he's on an accelerated plan. And I'll say, if it took that dude 3 years, but Sonny will definitely improve. No doubt about that. What I did find really strange, and I've heard, honestly, no less than 3 guys in the Buckeye media who were at that press conference who in the past week or 2 weeks have said Arvell Reese should be playing at least as many snaps as Sonny Styles, not less than half. And in some cases, he should be starting. Now, you say that all week, There was not a single question to Ryan Day, not a single question to Jim Knowles. Arvell Reese's name wasn't brought up one time. And that to me is just like, and it's kind of ironic that today I brought up Doug Lesmerises. If Doug Lesmerises would have said that on Monday in his podcast, he would have definitely asked that question on Tuesday. Guaranteed. So that was pretty disappointing. Everybody who knows what they're looking at is seeing Arvell Reese as the best linebacker on the team right now and getting less than half the snaps of the other guys just makes absolutely no sense to me. Whether you are trying to develop Sonny to be better in the future or not, like you also want to develop the guy who is playing better and younger. So Chip took the stage as well. As far as Chip, everything's always really entertaining, but I don't think he said anything of real consequence other than we're not caught up in being balanced. So, people want to say, what are you running? 60-40, pass to run, run to pass, or 50-50. And he says, we don't force anything. That's the benefit of having all the weapons that we have. I love that approach. So that's fantastic. Let's get to our question. The first person in the chat to correctly answer this question gets themselves sent to them from Columbus Apparel Co. a shiny new Juckeyes shirt. And these are soft. These are nice. I really like them. So the question is, the class of 2025, the Buckeyes have a running back commit. Well, two. One of them from Ohio. His name is Bo Jackson. Now, Mika, you ready? Bo Jackson goes to a high school that has a famous alum that we all can't stand. Who is that alum? Jeff says Jerry Gee did look good that game. And that is a shout out to Andrew Siciliano, who called G. Scott Jerry Gee at the game, which was amazing to me. Like, where did the Jerry come? Dan is our winner. Dan is the big winner of the Juckeyes shirt. He beat Alex by 10 seconds, maybe 3 seconds. The Duck Knight said Trey McNutt. Listen, I've actually got something to tell you guys about Trey McNutt. So, yeah, that boy, you guys all got that one. A whole lot of right answers, but Dan is the winner. Dan, send me an email, juckonbucks@gmail.com. Anyone, feel free to send me an email just to talk shop. And I've got one to respond to here, actually, that I just read from my buddy Tom. Out there on the internet, Ohio State linebackers are lined up too deep. Ohio State linebackers are lost out there. Sonny Styles is frequently out of position. There does seem to be increasing doubts about the defensive coordinator as well. Soft game beginnings, adjustments too long in coming, not getting the defense aggressive soon enough. What do you think? OSU linebackers, I don't think they're lined up too deep. No. They look lost out there. I wouldn't say that either. I think there are some plays where Sonny looks lost out there, but that's like Jim Knowles was talking about. Like, that's going to come in time. Those aren't the areas where I'm concerned when it comes to Sonny. Like that's not the stuff I'm worried about. Like it's simple things that it's really like basic fundamentals and instincts that you see Arvell doing, like filling a gap just faster and reacting faster. Sonny seems to be a step slow. If you got a block coming from the left side, to get out to the left a little further before attacking vertically. He's attacking vertically immediately and catching blocks. He's having a hard time getting off of blocks. Like, these are things I thought he would excel at linebacker because he's so big and so strong with long arms. He is like, they're eating him up. The guards are eating him up on blocks. And like that kind of stuff, the natural athleticism of Sonny, I thought would be much different. So that's the way I feel about that. Increasing doubts about Jim Knowles. I've heard this too. Like, this to me, like, that's a guy that I trust him a lot, man. Like, he's not reached anywhere near the stratosphere of me being concerned about him. And we got to remember, like, this dude had the number 2 or 3 defense overall last year. And yes, some of the Big Ten offensive competition wasn't great, but we all watched that defense. They were dominant, and that's his defense. So if you can do that once, you can do that twice. And I don't have any doubts at all. As far as the adjustments, there's no doubt, and he's even admitted that it's taken him, a little longer than he would have liked to. But nobody's going to agree with every decision a coordinator makes. And a lot of times they don't agree with themselves, which is why when people say, like, well, you're not the coach or trust the coach, like, listen, I've spent the last 25 years listening to coaches on Tuesday tell me they made a mistake, right? So it's okay to disagree. So many of these decisions are literally like 51%, 49%. They're thinking, okay, I'm going to do this or this, and they go this way. Well, one of us may feel like this might be the better option. And that might be something like talking about pulling Jordan Hancock for 3 linebackers every single time you're in 12 personnel. Yes, listen to the coach. The coach knows what he's talking about. Sure, he does. But he's also thought the same thing. What should I do in this situation? And maybe he's leaned the other way and talked himself back into it. We never know. My point is, I think Jim Knowles is amazing. I think he's great for this program. And sure, he has things he can be criticized about, as we can criticize all coaches or any player about something or other. But when we criticize, it's also important to talk about the excellent things. And there are way more excellent things about Jim Knowles and his defense and what he's brought us at Ohio State than there are negatives, to me anyway. I mean, if anybody else doesn't believe that way, I just absolutely can't see. I just disagree. William, Juck, did you see the Oregon cancer unis that I tagged you on in X? William, I did. I wanted to show the video, but the damn thing was too long. Nobody would have wanted to watch it that long. But Dan Lanning's wife, a cancer survivor, helped Oregon develop the new uniforms that they made. So they're these cancer uniforms. I think they're really cool. I'm going to get a solid picture and show you guys, but I love it. Rod said Desmond is from Cleveland. Woodson is from Fremont, which is correct. Charles Woodson went to Fremont Ross. It is amazing that seems to be so many of the best players from Michigan are Ohio guys. Yes. Not only did they go to the same school, they play on the same team. They were excellent. I got a picture of those two, Elvis Gerbach and Desmond Howard. A picture of those two in high school. I have to find that thing. I got it somewhere in my stack of memorabilia that's not on the walls here. Yeah, Chris says Ohio State has the number 1 defense and the number 1 offense in the Big Ten. And, that's great. But like I said, at this point in the season, those numbers to me mean very little because you've played 3 non-P5 teams. I mean, it's great that you did it. You did the best you could with the people that were in front of you, and that's awesome. But when you compare it to the other teams who have all played now 2 Power 5 teams to our just 1, I can't really put a ton of stock into that. Though I totally think that this defense is going to come around and play really, really good. Like, for instance, when we compare this, as Fisherman puts, Ohio State and Tennessee are the only 2 teams in the top 5 in offense and defense. Ohio State did all they could with the opponents that they had, for sure, but they haven't been tested like Tennessee, who's played NC State, who's turned out to not be as tough as we thought that they would, but also played Oklahoma, who also not as good as we thought they would be, or maybe right where you thought they would be. I thought they'd be a little better, but definitely a higher quality competition. Eric says Sonny leads in tackles. That's a result of his position. Has a fumble recovery that he got totally burned on. Totally burned on. The only reason he was in position to recover that fumble is because he got smoked and was so far behind. His 4th game at a new position. Yes, it is. He'll be just fine. Yes, he will. As I said, I'm sick to my stomach of peeps jumping off the bandwagon. Stop spoiled Buckeye brats. If you think that Sonny's been playing good, you just don't know what you're looking at. I'm sorry. That's just what it is. He's not been playing good. And it's okay to say that. And it's okay to praise people when they play good and say when they're not playing good. It's okay. It's called honest evaluation and being authentic. I've got a Sonny Styles jersey right here. Big fan. Disdained Rogue says, it will constructively criticize if I feel like it. Rick Brick says, I'm sick of soft people's opinions who can't handle other people's opinions. Mika despises Desmond Howard. I think everybody watching can agree on that, except for, I don't know, maybe Johnny Olden, though I haven't seen him. Haven't seen if Johnny's around today. By the way, guys, if you ever want to watch honest evaluation from someone who does some Michigan stuff, for the most part, Johnny Olden, I think he's excellent. He's one of the only guys that covers that team that I think is great. What's up, Cody? Good to see you, buddy. Yes, Alex says Oregon is wearing their all blacks next week for the Buckeyes, and he thinks that the Buckeyes need to wear the white tops and pants. I totally agree. I want the white out for the Bucks next week up at Oregon. All blacks. Dave, I will be at the Walsh-Hoban game on Friday. If you guys don't know, Walsh and Hoban up here in Northeast Ohio, Summit County. This is going to be a huge game. Walsh is really good. You guys all know that Hoban's really good, loaded full of Buckeye prospects. Walsh has a receiver named Milan Paris, a quarterback named Kellen Moten. These dudes not quite as highly rated as the Hoban kids, but they're really good, and it's a heck of a team. So that's going to be a fantastic game. If anybody goes to that game, let me know. Come say hi. I'd like to talk to you. Mika, listen, I didn't get your message until later on. I missed it live, and then when I went back and checked out Buckeye Boys last night, I watched, you weren't on there. So I must have seen the wrong episode. I'll look a little further. CMK Tiger says, Knowles sucks. We have no linebackers. Our D gets exposed against good teams. Even the D line isn't as good. OSU needs to try to get D'Antonio back. Did you see D'Antonio this week, brother? It was sad, but D'Antonio is now an old man. He's an old man. But boy, I couldn't disagree more. Like, we have no linebackers. I think Cody Simon is a fantastic linebacker, and I think Arvell Reese is a budding superstar. Our D gets exposed against good teams. Like, you just watched Alabama and Georgia. Like, when you play a good team, you give up a lot of points. That's what college football is anymore. It's just a matter of, can you give up less than your offense can score? And as far as our D line, it not being that good, I don't know like what metrics you're going off of, but I see a D line who's getting quick games to death because teams are terrified of holding the ball. That's what I see. I was just talking to my buddy Woody's last night about this. An insane amount of people who absolutely lose their crap when you're honest about how players play on the team. They actually believe we'll win every single game because we're OSU. And there's this thing where there is a faction of people who think every Ohio State player never does anything wrong. Every coach always makes the right decision. Ohio State's always the better team, and it's because the refs that we lost. Like, it's okay to admit when things aren't right, because that's how you fix them, right? You can't get better unless you identify what things aren't up to snuff. And when I'm critical, I always be sure to say, like probably in this show, I've said maybe 25 really great things about the Buckeyes and maybe 4 things that need work. But there's a faction of people who will be in my comments talking about the 4 things I said that need improvement and be mad about it. And it's really irritating. And I didn't even realize this potential or this faction until I started doing this show, to be honest. This is a great question. The answer, I think, is unfortunately no. Vernell Brown, Florida commit, and absolutely still in love with Florida, even despite Billy Napier being 100% on the hot seat and most likely getting fired. But he is a 3rd-generation legacy. Grandpa, Florida, dad, Florida. Vernell wants to be at Florida. I don't think he wants to leave, and I don't think we're going to get him. And Mika says what I was feeling too. Coach D'Antonio made me feel old. I was really sad. I was really sad for it. Terry, good morning, buddy. Terry says the only Michigan player I like is Jake Butt. Good Ohio boy and one of the best game day announcers interviews. He was so bad in the game that he did of Ohio State last year and was so good in the one this year that it wasn't even like the same guy. So huge improvement for Butt as far as an announcer. And he really hyped up Ohio high school football. So I'm with you. I'm with you. I think that he's a quality dude. He was a hell of a player, man. I felt like he used to consistently be a real issue. So Woody says he's not mad about the criticism. He just wishes that fans would appreciate the team a little more. I realize that this team is terrible faction is small but loud, and it's true. And those types of folks, I try to talk sense into that kind of attitude. Like you can still have a team that is the very best team in the country, which I think the Buckeyes are, and strive to get better. Right? You can still do that. But the folks who notice and pick apart those couple of things that aren't perfect and say this team sucks because of them, those particular things are just I don't know, man. They just want to be unhappy, right? Like I'm thrilled about this team. Absolutely thrilled. Andrew Mueller wants Angry Day. I call him Georgia Ryan Day, but I'm with you, man. I love that Ryan Day. What this transition for him to being able to just be a head coach on the sideline instead of the play caller. Like every week we see something different from him. I just feel like things are going to be really, really good when it comes crunch time, when we get to play in some real big competition, when we go up to Oregon. It's going to be really fun. It's going to be really fun watching. And I find myself liking Ryan Day more and more, which, I got to tell you, towards the end of last year, like the back half, I was just feeling a totally different way about Ryan Day. But what is interesting is when we listen to Ryan Day talk about the transition, like he did yesterday, about his new job and what he's doing now in his new role, the way he's talking about it, like all the revelations that it's like, I don't understand how you didn't see that you could have done this before and maybe tried to go get that coordinator before, but whatever, man. But bygones are bygones. This is where we're at now, and this is what matters. And right now, it all looks great. We've had Angry Ryan Day all year. I'm with you. Mika says, will Griffin quarterback maybe flip or Brady Smigel? Did Brady Smigel sign with Florida State, didn't he? I mean, I absolutely feel like so they just lost, I think, their best wide receiver. They got a lot of people jumping off. And if I'm right that Brady Smigel signed with Florida State, I believe he did, and Griffin signed with Florida. Yeah, I can definitely see those guys flipping, which, I don't know if that's a good thing or not. I'm not a huge believer in either one of them. Smigel much better than Griffin, I think. Ryan Dexter Day. Andrew says, we're going to see sad Ryan Day on October 12th. We'll see, buddy. I got to tell you, I'm feeling pretty doggone good about that Oregon game in a way I did not feel 2 months ago or 3 months ago or 4 months ago. And a lot of people, most Buckeye fans, not maybe most, maybe 50% of Buckeye fans were like, yeah, we might lose that game, but you're going to have another shot, most likely in the Big Ten championship. And now Oregon's not even the number 2, favorite to get to that Big Ten championship. Like Penn State looks like the team. I think that the culture of this Ohio State team and these Buckeyes under Ryan Day in the last couple of years is the most amazing thing about this place. Like it's so hard right now, and we see it all over the country, to have good culture with transfers, with the way things go anymore. And the way they are at Ohio State, like, this team has the it factor. They play together, the way they play, the way they support each other. You can see it on TV. I watch every big football game. I watch so much football. Like, it is rare to see teams like Ohio State. It's rare. And not only does it speak volumes, like, it should be commended. And I absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. I'm really proud of it. Alex, over under Iowa, 100 rushing yards Saturday. I'm going to go over, but I still think overall yards are going to be way below their average. I think they're close to averaging 400 yards a game. I think we're going to hold them around 250. I'm with Sean here. Cody Simon, stud. Arvell will be, probably really could be right now if he was playing as much as either Cody or Sonny. And Sonny could be. You know, like I said, I've not lost faith in Sonny at all. Let's get to a super chat here. And a new member, Jer Cap. Keep up the great work, buddy. Jeremy, thanks for the 10, buddy. Appreciate you, bro. My guy. And a new member, thanks for joining. Your Juckeye shirt will be in the mail shortly. Give me an email to juckonbucks@gmail. juckonbucks@gmail. Send me your address and your shirt size so I can send you out from our sponsor, Columbus Apparel, a new Juckeye shirt. All right, my friends. So I appreciate you so much. Congratulations to Dan on winning that shirt. Very fast, quick on the draw. Beat about 6 of you to the correct answer. And I realized I got to make my next question harder for the Juckeye shirt giveaway. And that's all we got today. Appreciate you all so much. Please check me out tomorrow at 9:30. So excited that the internet held up the entire show 2 days in a row. How about that? And I appreciate you guys so much. Talk to you soon. Juck 'em Bucks out.